Well, hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Recruiter of Oz podcast.
Welcome, everybody.
Mark is being festive now. So, all right, everybody. So, if you've been with us this long, you know we're kind of examining the job process and the recruiter and sourcer relationship with the job seeker and kind of talking about how best to work with that audience. But this time around, we're going to do kind of a tips and tricks episode, and we're going to pull the curtain back and kind of give you an insight into some of the more effective ways to do a job search strategically. So for this episode, I'm going to basically hand it over to my partner in crime, Mark Tortorisi, sourcer recruiter extraordinaire, and he is going to walk you through some of the methods that he would use to do a job search. Mark.
Yes. Thank you, Scott. For what we want to talk about today, a couple of cool things. One is the actual process of looking for a job. Now, there is a whole host of sites, and I have friends who are very good at like writing up like tips and tricks to look for jobs. So we can put those in like links, I think, in the podcast after this.
Yes, we can.
So I do have some like links to some good books and some good job search guides. I'm just going to take like a few ideas that I've like found on my own and put them into this kind of like presentation. So one thing that helps is when you're searching for a job is to actually be good at like search, and not everyone is good at search. So instead of just assuming that everybody knows everything about sourcing, I'm just going to show you just a couple of basic things about searching like on Google and LinkedIn. Now, one thing about LinkedIn, I will point out, LinkedIn does have a lot of jobs, right? So we know the site, right? We've done this before. You go into LinkedIn, you type in your keywords, and then they do their keyword search, their relevancy ranking, and all that good stuff. It's okay. It's not that good. It's the way they do their search and the way they rank their profiles and their algorithms, they're not necessarily the best in the business. But it makes sense, right? If you're thinking of search, the companies that you think of that are good at search are ones like Google, maybe Bing, right? Companies that have been working at this for like years and years.
Right.
LinkedIn is not trying to do that. LinkedIn just wants you to connect with more people that you already know. So they're really more on the social aspect of the network, not necessarily the retrieving information and displaying it for the user. So when I go in here and I type in something like product marketing manager, sometimes you get things that work. Other times you get things where you're like, what did I search? It's like you get some bizarre job postings.
You know, and really quickly, Mark, sorry to interrupt. You went all Julia Roberts there, I realized. You say, so when I go in and type product marketing manager, which I've already prepared one and is in the oven right now. Sorry. I had to give you an aside there.
So if you do want to make things easier on yourself, and I will talk about this in a second, you can put quotes around your search. That's only if you know for sure that there's going to be job titles that match that. Now, even so, I'm still getting things like channel marketing manager, right? And you may think to yourself, okay, well, is that right? Is that really a product marketing manager, right? So you have to like go through and read this, say, okay, what are they actually working on? Okay, channel strategies, programs. You know, this doesn't really read like product marketing. Why am I getting this stupid job? And all of a sudden you come over here and you're like, product marketing, no. So not quite what we want. And you want to have better control over that. Now, that's not to say that it's totally wrong, because clearly we are getting some product marketing roles, and we're getting, of course, thousands of them. So it does work, but you want to be able to have better control over it. And LinkedIn search only allows a certain amount of control. So to fix that, if you're maybe tired of looking through LinkedIn and searching through LinkedIn the way that it's set up, you can also search via Google. And that's what I want to talk about today.
Okay.
So everyone knows who I am. So let's talk about kind of like this Boolean science here, right? Science.
He
So
blinded me with science.
So Boolean is easy to understand. It's and, or, and not. Very easy. Yeah, we all learned this in like grade school, right? So it's much harder to use it correctly, though. It's much harder to kind of like weed out all of the stuff that you don't want to see and just focus on the things that you do want to see. And besides the Boolean operators, if you're using Google, there's a whole host of special operators that you want to be familiar with. Scott, how many of these are you familiar with?
Oh, do I have to be honest on this? I mean, because I'm coming from, hey, LinkedIn is the greatest thing since sliced bread in terms of job searching. But I also have those problems with, trying to weed out a lot of the chaff in jobs. And side note to that, with my role, analyst relations, you put in analyst relations in quotations in LinkedIn, and it brings you all kinds of non-related analyst roles. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm going to learn as much from this episode as everybody else is going to, Mark. And to answer your question, I am familiar with link, site, and in URL. And the only reason I'm familiar with in URL is because you showed it to me a couple of weeks ago.
Okay. Okay. So for those who don't know, now, if you're a source or a recruiter, then you already know this, or you should know this. But a couple things. For one, if you're in Google, you don't need to put the and in. The and is implicitly implied in every search that you enter. So if you enter in 3 words, magically on the back end, what that's implying is 3 words with ands in between them. You just don't need to write it out. You just need to write out the string as is. So no ands are needed. They're implied in the code.
Well, if you're doing a string like that, do you also need quotations around it, though?
Only if you wanted the job title to be called this, that, other.
Okay, gotcha.
So the or you do need to have in there because the or gives you variables, right? It gives you analyst relations or investor relations. So the or is what you want to use. And the or has to be capitalized. If you do a lowercase or in Google, then Google reads it as the word or instead of the operator or.
Interesting.
So that's how you want it to look.
Okay.
For not, the minus sign. No space between the minus sign and the word you want to get rid of. For instance, if you type in investor relations and then you do minus, like, I don't know, brokerage or minus like brokers or something like that, then the minus sign has to be touching the word. If you have a space between the minus sign and the word, then it ignores it and it just actually searches for the word. So the minus sign has to be touching the word that you want to get rid of.
Oh, okay. I wish it was that easy with my situation, though. I mean, because basically the roles that I'm getting are subtractive anyway. So it removes the relations part out of it. So I don't know if there's a way around that or not, but
there's always a way.
Okay.
There's always a way. So
the force.
Quotes, like what you mentioned before, is only if you have a job title that's like 2 or more words and you want them to appear in that order. So in other words, or a phrase on the job description. So if you want investor relations to always be connected to each other, then and they're going to be right next to each other, well, then you put quotes around it.
Okay.
And the quotes require the words to appear in a specific order. So it could be 2-word phrase, could be a 3-word phrase. It doesn't matter. Now, obviously, the more words you add, well, then the lower your results are going to be because you're really specifying that search.
But the more targeted your results are going to be. And side note, I found out the hard way that LinkedIn does not observe these rules for the most part.
Well, it does observe the quotes, but like it's still not great. Like you still will get bizarre things in there. Like, so one thing that LinkedIn does, which is like really, really annoying, is if I type in like investor relations and I put it in quotes and search it, it is going to find pages with investor relations together. But then in the job search, it's still going to bold out investor a bunch of places by itself and relations a bunch of places by itself.
Right.
And you'll be like, why am I getting these results? And so it looks like it's doing it wrong. It's doing it right, but it just adds a bunch of extra noise and fluff to the search results.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, it's very frustrating.
Yes, it is.
Now the parentheses, for the most part, like you don't need to put it in, but you should put it in because it helps you separate and see where your words are. So parentheses are when you want to have like or statements.
Okay.
So if I have one set of keywords or some other variable for that set of keywords, well, then I'm going to put it in a set of parentheses. And if there happens to be another word where there's absolutely no variation for that word, well, then that just sits outside the parentheses by itself.
Okay.
So there's your Boolean basics. Any questions about that? It's pretty easy.
No, but I like how you just made it sound like we were making soup. There's your Boolean basics. Oh, sorry. Oh, I got to stop with the food puns today.
Okay. Special operators. Now we're talking Google specific here. If you want to search any word in the URL or the web address, use in URL. And you want to search a word in the title of a web page, use in title. And the reason why this is important is because in any document, whether in this case, I'm just using a resume, but in any document, there are hints as to the type of document that it might be based on a word in the URL or the title of that resume, of that page.
Okay.
And so that's going to be important because we're going to use that to job search. And I'll show you in a second.
Cool. Okay.
Another thing that's important is the cite operator. Now, this one is probably like the biggest one out of all of them because the cite operator, when you're in Google, if you just type in a bunch of words, it's going to search the entire interwebs. And it's going to be a huge mix and mess of everything that's out there. And it's going to do like a top surface level percent of like 10% or something like that.
Okay.
What the cite operator does, it lets you focus on one website and only one website. So it like narrows down your search.
Okay. Quick question. So if you're looking at a particular website, can you actually use this Boolean search technique in that website?
You can. So here's an example. Here's all these different places that I might want to site search. If I'm looking at like job portals, if I'm looking at associations, social networks, whatever it is, any of these could be turned into a site search. And so here's an example of how each of those could look. You would use the cite operator and then however much or however little of the domain that you need in order to get to the information that you need.
So then use this line right here. And then after that, you put in the parens, the specific search terms that you were looking for and the operators?
Yes. Now for jobs, though, that first one is LinkedIn, that /in, that's actually for profiles. So for jobs, you want to change that /in to /jobs. Okay. And then you would do your normal stuff. So for instance, let's pause. Let's take a Twix pause.
Yes. So really quick question then, if we're taking a Twix pause, are you a right or a left Twix? Hey.
Anyways, so here's the URL. Notice how this says linkedin.com/jobs.
Yes.
But when you're looking at someone's profile, let me see if I can do this. Okay, so when you're looking at somebody's profile, the profile site is going to be, let me bring up mine here, actually, hold on. Come on, LinkedIn. So see how it's linkedin.com/in and then my username on the site. Right. So the /in is only if you want to like search people, but if you want to search jobs, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do site and then linkedin.com/jobs. And that's a good thing because that means I can go to Google and I can do linkedin.com/jobs. And now I can go back and put in that product marketing manager role. Okay. And you'll notice that the results are going to look a little different than what LinkedIn had for their own site. And the reason why it's going to look different is because of the way that Google is indexing the roles on LinkedIn versus LinkedIn itself. Okay. So, yeah. So it's like, this is good because you can then add keywords and location and focus the search all based on whatever it is you're looking for.
Okay.
So if you want to also focus on the United States, I'm going to show you another trick. There. So if you just do site linkedin.com, it's going to get all over the planet, right? You'll get LinkedIn product marketing manager jobs at iStation Zebra in like Antarctica.
Right.
But if you do site www.linkedin.com/jobs, well, now you're just going to get US-based jobs.
So why is that?
Because that's how they do their domains. Like if I change this to right, so it's like you can change it to the actual locations of like some of these jobs here. See, product marketing is United Kingdom, right?
Interesting. So when I'm doing a search like this, the first thing I'm thinking of is if I'm looking at the specific section of a website, it's going to be the subdomain. So the subdomain to me would be like jobs.linkedin.com. So you wouldn't do that in this situation. You would basically have the qualifier after the domain itself. So /jobs.
And it's only the way that the site is built. The way that LinkedIn builds their site is they have the host for the country, and then they have a folder on the server for the types of documents that are on there, whether /in, it's for people, /jobs, it's for jobs, /posts, it's for all of their posts, and so on.
So if a website was laid out such that there were subdomains preceding the actual domain name, then you would type in that subdomain. So
yes, as long as you know that it was built that way.
Okay. So, I mean, even though you wouldn't search this place that I'm going to say for jobs necessarily, if you were to search like docs in Google, it would be site:docs.google.com.
Yeah. If that's, okay. That's how it was. Yeah. So you can see here, I'm like doing site.uk.linkedin.com/jobs. So now I'm specifically in the United Kingdom.
Okay.
Specifically searching jobs, product marketing manager for like some sort of cloud-based. I mean, that's super generic. Like I could do a better job of that.
Right.
Services. Oh no. I could just been like that.
Okay.
And now I'm getting all these jobs here, and they're specific. Now I have like, and look at this. Remember how the job search we did in LinkedIn, it had like channel marketing, it had like enablement strategy, it had all this weird stuff. Right. Well, now look what I'm getting. I'm getting like specific product marketing jobs. I'm getting exactly what I want. That's
cool. And that's assuming that the person posting the job is getting the SEO correct, though. So I got you.
It's assuming they're doing that, but also Google is indexing LinkedIn's jobs a lot more on their own, to where the person doing the SEO doesn't have to worry about it, because they're just indexing LinkedIn.
Okay, gotcha.
Which actually brings me to our next point here.
I cannot wait.
So that's site searching. So we talked about that. The last thing I want to talk about is the around operator. This only works in Google. And remember how we talked about quotes, right? You put quotes around 2 or more words if you want them to appear in a certain order. But what if you know you want these 2 words to appear next to each other, but you don't know how far apart they are?
Oh, that's
so the around operator will do that. It's kind of like the near operator that's used in other search engines. Okay. And so here's an example. Let's say I want to find like a degree somewhere around the level. I could do that in one set of parentheses. I could put the level of the degree and then around 3 words or less. So it could be 2 or 1, but they're going to be near each other, and then computer science.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it works. It totally works. So this is kind of like the near operator. And obviously the greater number you make that 3, like if you made it 10, well, then you're probably going to get a lot more results, but then the results are going to be probably a lot more disjointed, because like 10 words apart, they have less meaning to each other than maybe 3 or 2 words apart.
Okay. That's super cool. All right.
Yeah. So that could be very useful. Now, when you are doing this whole trick with Google searching, it's good to understand how it works, this whole like site searching thing. So there are a lot of different ATS systems that are out there. ATS systems are the first places that jobs will show up. Companies have to post via their ATS first. They're like almost like legally obligated to do so. They can't post like first on LinkedIn and then have it show up on their ATS. It has to show up on their ATS first.
And side note, for those of you who may not be familiar with the acronym ATS, Mark, do you care to share?
Applicant tracking system.
Yes, there we go. So I've been sitting over here for the last 5 episodes going, yeah, ATS systems, of course. Yeah, I know exactly what that is. And I'm thinking, do I know what that is? No, I didn't. So thank you, Mark, for clarifying.
Yeah. And it's also, people say ATS system, but that's like, it's in the acronym. So it's like, you're basically, when you say ATS system, you're saying ATS system. So as long as Google indexes that site, whatever the site is, you can search it in Google.
Okay.
Now, there's a whole thing about indexing that I want to talk about, because Google in general, it takes Google about 10 business days to index the entire internet and bring it back to its servers.
Wow.
Now, for certain sites, it's going to index it more often. For instance, like maybe like Twitter or LinkedIn or news sites that are updated constantly, it may index those more often. Okay. But for things like other job sites, it may not. So there are ways to force Google to index those faster, and we can get to those if we have time at the end here. But I want to show you how that works. So here is a job website. Well, it's like the internet, but within the internet, you have all these different job websites for companies.
Right.
You have Google, which is a search engine. What they do is they send out their little web crawler, and it goes out and crawls all these different websites on the internet, records information of the content on there, metadata, links, URL, keywords, brings it back to the index database within the search engine. They create an index database of all this information that kind of summarizes what they just found.
Okay.
They have a ranking algorithm which ranks the different sites based on like link popularity, the amount of sites that are linking to that site, the amount of times they're actually hit by users, like the web traffic, like all those statistics.
Right.
Also in the search engine, they have a search algorithm, and that search algorithm will work once a user enters in a search query. And so here's you, the user. You come over here and you're like, okay, I'm going to type in my search string and run it. And then they run that through a search algorithm. It goes through the index database. The ranker will give back the top sites out of there and send it back to the user. That's how search engines work in general.
Okay, cool.
Now, like I said, Google will index the internet like every 10 days or so, but some websites it may index less, and some sites it may index more. So you may want to force things on your own. And what you do that by first identifying the most popular ATS systems. Now, I will say this about ATS systems: they're not really popular. In fact, I'm gonna cross that out. We're just going to change that to the most used ATS systems, because no one is happy about the ATS system that they have unless they build it themselves, which there are companies that build them themselves.
Okay.
But these are the ones that are the most used out there. Ones like
I recognize those.
Yeah. So iSIMS, JobVite.
Greenhouse is the one I've been seeing most recently.
Yeah. So remember how we talked about the site operator?
Mm-hmm.
So what you can do is, because all of these ATS systems have companies that are their customers, a lot of times the companies will just use the ATS system, and the jobs, once you go to the company's website, once you click on careers, all of a sudden you'll get opened up into a new tab, and then all of a sudden you'll be in greenhouse.com or slash and then the name of the company.
Right.
And the reason why is because they're just having the ATS system host the job portal for them.
Interesting.
That's
so I was wondering about that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's like an easy option. So because of that, you can use site searches for each of these. Now, let me show you something. Here's Greenhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Now for Greenhouse, that's one of the URLs you could use. You can do site and then boards.greenhouse.io, and then you put in whatever keywords you want to use.
Okay.
Like titles, keywords, location-based keywords. Here's one for smart recruiters. For them, it's jobs.smartrecruiters.com.
There's that subdomain.
Yeah, the host. The host.
Okay.
And then there's Lever. And then iSIMS. Now for iSIMS, I forget why you had to do, I think it's because in URL jobs, I think it's because the word jobs was like separated between a couple of other things that were variables.
Okay.
And then Workday. Oh God, Workday. Okay, so Workday, a couple things about Workday. They have multiple hosts. And for some reason, these are the active ones that I was able to find. WD 1, 3, 5, 10, and 12.
So when you're doing a site search, are these all propagated together? Is all the same information available on each of these hosts?
No, they're all different. So I ran a search for each of these, and they were all different.
Okay. So how do you know?
Well, I didn't scrape them all and then compare exactly, but they looked pretty different when I clicked on them, and I couldn't figure out why they were different for each. I think if any of our users is a Workday aficionado, maybe you could tell me, but I did notice that these were the ones that were active. And then PeopleClick and Workable, those are the ones for them. And then the last and most, again, not necessarily popular, but used, Taleo.
Yes.
So let's take one of these sites and try this with a job search.
And before we do this, Mark, really quick, will we be able to offer the viewers with some of this information and in hard copy PDF, just so they know, kind of how to hit those sites?
Yeah. After this presentation, I'm going to destroy these slides and they'll never be seen again. Gotcha. No. Yeah. I can send this and everyone can, get a copy of the searches so they can try this on their own.
Okay.
And then I'll destroy it. Okay. So here's job example number 1 here, accounts payable specialist. So I'm going to try this with Workable. So you do site : and then the URL is apply.workable.com. Mm-hmm. Easy. And then I'm going to add in my keywords. Now let me explain to you the mess that is my keywords here. The first part is I'm looking for an accounts payable kind of like specialist job. The thing to remember is there are many different titles that could work. So when you're doing your job searches, you want to look at other people who are also doing the same exact job. Maybe go to LinkedIn and do site linkedin.com/in accounts payable, and then look for all the different titles that people have, because it may be specialist, but it could also be associate. It could be officer if they're working in like a smaller company. It could be assistant. It could be clerk. It could be anything.
Right.
But it's an individual contributor. So there's a lot of different titles that could work there. And if the more titles you have, you just put them in the parentheses with ors in between them.
Okay.
So that's the title piece. And now the location. We're in the realm of remote work here. So you want to work a remote job, but you don't want a remote job in, let's say, the UK, because they probably won't hire you. So you want a remote job, but you want it to be in the United States, or you'll go into the office if you're in New York, right? New York City. Yeah. So the way that you fix that is, you notice I have 2 sets of parentheses for the location. The first set is remote or New York City. The second set is United States, USA, or New York City. Okay. So I'm going to, with those 2 things separate, I'm going to either get remote in the United States or New York, or I'm just going to get New York. Okay. I gotcha. So let's try this out. Let's try this out and see what this looks like here. So I'm going to just copy this. I'm going to copy this fancy search string here, and we'll run this in the Google. Okay. And now you can see. And this is just, obviously, this is just one ATS system. This is just Workable. Okay. I could do that with all the other strings that we had for those other ATS systems. But see, look at, now you're getting, right? That's insane. Okay. Pretty cool, right? Yeah, that's very cool. And once you were done with that, well, then you could go back here to another one. Let's pick I don't know, greenhouse. Let's see if greenhouse has a lot of these.
Yes, my favorite one.
And so I would just get rid of that and paste the greenhouse one and do that.
Wow.
And so you could see how it brings up the stuff.
This is so cool.
So it works. This is good. Now, I will say there is something to remember here. Now, this is perfect. Look at that.
That's what I was going to ask about. So can you actually delineate dates in your search?
Yes. So what I would do is I would go over here to tools. So you have your results, 252 results. Go over here to tools and then maybe change this instead of anytime, maybe do it the past month.
Okay. Yeah. So you're using the Google search for this, then it's not the actual greenhouse.
Yeah.
ATS.
But now you can see like, hey, this was March 31st, March 22nd, 7 days ago. Right now, April 1st. So it's like now you've got some stuff that could work.
Okay.
Pretty cool, right?
This is super cool.
So that's one way. Now, something else, let me go back to sharing my screen here. That I talked about. What if, so I talked about these ATS systems, but what if the company uses an ATS but hosts the jobs and the portal on their own website? In other words, they're so big and they have enough infrastructure and engineers working for the company that they don't need to host it on another site. They'd rather have everything on their own website.
Okay.
And they get the functionality of the ATS system. They probably use an API to exchange information from the two sites instead of just sending a user to like, jobs.lever.co. They just keep it within the company's website. And any information they need to get from the ATS provider, they use an API to move that information between the two sites. So
will that allow you to search from the ATS to get into the company's own site?
No, in fact, you wouldn't be. In fact, you would not be able to, because it's all hosted on their website, on the company's website. But there is a way to search for companies that may do that. So check this out. This string here will find companies whether or not they have an ATS system and they're hosting it on their own, or if they're using another provider.
Okay.
So instead of searching using the site operator, I'm just searching for the word careers. I could also do jobs, but careers is usually a better one. And put it in the title or the URL of the web page, and then the rest of my keywords.
Interesting. Okay. So if you were like at Apple, you would do this?
Yeah, that Apple would be one. Yeah. But here, let me show you an example of this. So here is a product marketing manager role. And I want a product marketing manager. The product is like a cybersecurity software.
Okay.
So here's like my string, and I want it to be in like the Bay Area, or I want it to be remote in the United States.
Okay.
That's my search. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to run it. And whoops, where's my search? Where's my search?
Oh no. The sky is falling.
Here we go.
All right.
So a couple things with this search. For one, there's a ton, but
yeah.
But the important thing I want to point out is not Indeed. Let me try and find. Let's see if I can find this. Notice how all of these have like careers in the URL or in the title. But let me try and find. Here we go. Okay, Experian. So Experian is hosting their job portal on Smart Recruiters. So we would find them with all those tricks that we showed you earlier with the site search. But now I'm going to show you a company that we wouldn't have found with those previous site searches. Basically, any of these ones up here.
Really?
Let me. Yeah, I mean, any of these. I mean, Okta, here, let's do this one.
Rubric, yeah.
So if you notice the URL, it's just rubric.com company careers,
Yep.
and then the job. There's no ATS. We're not on the separate ATS site. You just apply here and then you send. So this one you would have not found unless you would not have found with those site searches with those ATS systems.
Okay.
In fact, there's a lot that are like that. If you go back to the results, you can tell from the URL. Like obviously Google, they have their own ATS system, but like Rubric, Fastly, there's another one.
Zoom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okta.
Yeah. Actually, I'm curious about Okta. I thought they did use something. Let's see if we can click on one of these.
Oh.
No, it looks
still
like
within their site. That's cool. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Huh.
Interesting.
Right.
Oh, and there's our our robotic process automation in the bottom right. That's another. Yeah.
But this is good. So it's like, and a lot of like the bigger companies will have their own ATS system where they're just utilizing like some functionality of the ATS provider, but it's all hosted within their website. Here's one that's using Workday. So clearly here, this company, CrowdStrike, they're using Workday.
Okay.
But then here's Cloudflare, and they are not, right? They have their own setup there. So
okay.
Now this is 18,000 results. Like that's just ridiculous. So again, if I'm looking for like the best job here, I might do the past month and then click tools and see how many that is. 51. All right. Now we're talking. And so now you can click on the ones that just posted two days ago, 3 days ago, right? And you can go from there.
So with Google's archive, they're going to archive and they're just going to retain all of this information in perpetuity, or what?
It takes a long time. So for instance, if I clear the search here, you'll notice that some of these, let me scroll down here a little bit. Some of these are like old, like, I don't know if I could find some offhand here, but I found ones that are like a year old. Like,
wow. Okay.
I don't know if I'll be able to do it on demand here, but I've done it before. So it's a good idea to get the ones that are the most recent. Now, another thing you can do is you can set up this string. You can copy this string and set up something called a Google alert.
Right.
So Google alerts are great because you can set up a search to automatically send you new stuff the second it shows up. So just go, as long as you have a Google account, you can set up Google alerts, and then you can set up this string. You can just copy this wherever you can copy this string and say, give me these results once a week or once a day or as they happen. That way, that way you stay on top of the job search faster than maybe other people. You could do the same thing with this search that we did with LinkedIn. You could say, okay, give me this set of results the second that it happens, the however new it's going to be, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Anytime past week.
I'd be so curious to know what percentage of job seekers are actually utilizing these tools.
You know, I've always wondered that.
Because I mean, I've jumped from one platform to another, and it's been like, it was Craigslist back in the early aughts, and then it went to LinkedIn. LinkedIn's kind of been my go-to, but I realized the limitations based on kind of what you're talking about now. And you know, seeing this, it's crazy. My mind just kind of exploded, and thinking that I may have been missing out on some major opportunities here without even realizing it.
So see this, you could create a Google alert for this string, this UK product manager for cloud.
Yeah.
93 results in the last week. And you can see, look at that, 2 days ago, 20 hours ago,
wow,
6 days ago. I mean, like 1 day ago, like this is the stuff that you'd want to jump on.
Absolutely. I can tell you what I'm doing after this call.
So that's kind of like the bulk of what I had, I think. But really, it's like the hosted ATS systems where the company just lets the ATS kind of like take control of all the job postings and the experience for the applicant. And then there are other companies that may either build their own ATS, so then there is no hosted ATS, or they have a hosted ATS, but they incorporate the functionality of it within their website, so you never actually see it.
Okay. And then seeing what you just demonstrated, it's kind of an enlightening situation for me, because I mean, these are things that I didn't even realize existed in terms of, resources.
Yeah.
So,
And then the LinkedIn thing, right? You saw you could search on LinkedIn and it was okay, but then you saw that you could search and do the same thing on Google and then even tweak it a little more and then get the ones that are, just as new. So it's pretty cool.
Man, that's awesome. That is awesome. So I think we're quite a ways into this today. Do you have any other topics that you think would be relevant to discuss in this particular session?
I don't think so. I mean, I think if you could even do that, I think you're ahead of the curve for sure.
That's great to know. And I'm almost, a bit reticent to put this out there because I need to go out there and do it first, just so I see the jobs, man.
Okay, do it first and then post it.
Right. Well, hey, this has been super, super cool, especially, as a candidate and someone who's been kind of doing the job search for a while now. I can tell you this is going to happen as soon as I get off the call, and I'm going to start giving this a try. If there's anybody out there that has any questions or would like to drill down on this, definitely feel free to reach out to Mark, who will be linked in the description, or myself, or send an email to scott@arphilic.com. That's scott@arphilic.com. Mark, do you have any parting words for our viewers?
Parting words, yes. Just because something looks like food doesn't mean you should eat it.
Good advice to live by. Everybody, thanks for joining us for episode 5. We look forward to seeing you again in another week. Have a great day.
See you guys.